Hey there, sorry my last video cut out on me. So here was the other thing that I wanted to show you. There's just two more points to this video, which include a brief discussion of communication climate as well as conflict. So I'll make it quick. First of all, communication climate is from chapter 10 and it refers to how our overall relationship feels. In other words, it's the emotional tone. Also, we have two terms here on the PowerPoint that you'll see called confirming communication and disconfirming communication. If you think about it, what we've done all quarter falls under confirming and disconfirming communication. So for example, confirming communication describes messages that convey valuing. So we've seen this in a multitude of things that we've looked at, including the pillow method, the language of responsibility, effective listening responses, as well as navigating what types of nonverbal communication we're using and why we're using it. Additionally, we have disconfirming communication. These are messages that really show a lack of regard for our significant others. So you can really just flip it and think about everything else that we've done, which includes ineffective listening habits like pseudo-listening, insensitive listening, stage hogging, and insulated listening. Additionally, you could think of things like you language, you could think about negative self-fulfilling prophecies, and you could also think about things like, the types of nonverbals that we use as substituting that maybe aren't so great. Yeah, those things can cause confusion sometimes and maybe show that we're lazy or we don't really care. We don't really convey that valuing to our partners. So as we go into the next few slides then regarding conflict, here's what I want you to think about. Conflict is something that we've actually been addressing the entire quarter. So my lecture on chapter 11 is really brief, and 10, because everything we've been doing is to increase our relationships to have a positive climate and little conflict. So you'll really find that in chapters 10 and 11, it's more vocabulary that's basically describing something that we've been doing all along. So bear with me, I am going to really quickly go through these slides so that I can get to the conflict section. And I'll just go over a brief definition of conflict and the types of conflict styles. So pardon the slides as we breeze through those. Okay, so first of all, what I want you to notice is the definition of conflict. You can see that this is much more than a disagreement, and by definition, many communication scholars argue that you can really only have a conflict if both parties know the conflict is happening. So if you are mad at someone but they don't know, then you're mad at someone, but they don't know. So there's really no conflict happening. There's only a conflict if the two people involved know there's a conflict. Additionally, you'll see here that there's a term called interdependent, and that means that you're really relying on this person for something, even if you don't like them. So think about a time when you've been in a group project and the person's not pulling their weight. They're not helping you out. Well, it becomes a conflict because you probably have incompatible goals and you are dependent on that person to help you get a good grade and so that you don't have to do the whole project by yourself. So there are different conflict styles. I'm going to jump through the slides to get to that portion so you can review the rest here. So there's 5. We have avoiding, accommodating, competing, collaborating, and compromising. And here's a chart. So you'll see this chart really lays out 2 sides. We've got our concern for self and concern for others. And ultimately, what we'd really like to do is get to this point of collaborating. That's a win-win situation. Now, a lot of people have trouble with that one because they instantly jump to this idea of compromising, where we're winning some and we're giving up a little bit of something. But let me explain collaborating. There's an example between my parents. My dad really likes doing things for the yard. They have a very big yard, and he got really into building bat houses. It's pretty cool. But what my mom found was that my dad was building these bat houses and spending money on them when she felt there were other more useful things basically to spend money on, including the bills. So what they did to really collaborate was set aside a certain amount of money that my mom and dad both felt comfortable with, that my dad could spend on using it for his hobbies like building the bat house, and that it wasn't enough that my mom was concerned about paying the bills. So no one really lost anything in this case. They actually both won because my mom was happy with the finances and my dad was happy that he was able to continue with his hobby. So I hope that helps out a little bit. You can see the other ones here, and I encourage you to think about what your own types of conflict style are. It's really amazing what you can do to fix certain conflict styles you have that may not work in every situation, and you may also find that you're using different conflict styles dependent on the seriousness of the situation. So for example, sometimes accommodating is something we just do. We just have to do it. We don't want to make something a bigger deal than it is. But it would be a bad thing if we're using accommodating too much. All right, you've made it through your last video lecture. Sorry about the choppiness between the two videos. I hope you guys learned a lot this quarter, and I certainly hope you enjoy the rest of your break. Thank you so much, and good luck with your exams.